Welcome to the Author's Corner with H.D. Campbell. For over 10 years, giving you the best author reviews, features, and more with a surprise or two. All for you, the author. Now kick off your shoes and enjoy the show with your host, me, author H.D. Campbell.
You know, even after 20 years, readers are still captivated with How to Lose a Black Woman. Now, in its second printing, follow the story of Bruce Williams. Shall I say, mild-mannered school teacher in search of love? Using social media, prayer, and a lot of trial and error, Bruce fights to learn what a true relationship is all about. Filled with original poetry by H.D. Campbell, it's a lesson from one young man's point of view. Buy How to Lose a Black Woman on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Smashwords, in your favorite bookstore, and even on his website at www.hdcampbell3.com. And as always, let your writing fuel your spirit.
Writing was my escape. You know, when you're younger, I'm from the Midwest. I was born in Peoria, Illinois.
Ooh.
And so my mother had all kinds of books from all different genres, from Jackie Collins to Grisham to Harlequin romance books, Donald Goins, you know, so on and so forth. So when I was younger, you know, I would write little stories and make little pictures and attach them from the books that I've seen. I thought that's what you would do to make a book, you know. So, and then I found that it was relaxing, and it let my little young mind run and imagine I was in places that I probably would never ever visit.
Right.
So, So it started at a young age.
Cool. So what got you saying, okay, I want to write, but what got you into wanting to write professionally full-time?
What made me want to write what, I'm sorry?
What made that transition into wanting to write professionally?
Professional? Honestly, what happened was, it's a testimony basically. I was diagnosed with cancer. So, well, before then, I wrote Tears of the Game many years ago. And I put it down. I didn't think much of it. And when I was diagnosed in 2014, I decided, you know what, I didn't think I was going to make it. And so I said I wanted to leave something behind, something my kids could show my grandkids, you know, if ever they had kids. And, you know, your grandmother was, oh, this is her work. So I just wanted to leave something behind. And, you know, God said something different, and here I am 6 books later.
Now, first I want to go on and say, God is good. Is everything okay as of now? How's everything now? Health-wise?
I'm fine. I'm okay. I'm okay.
Awesome. Because that was God's way of saying, no, you will not leave this earth, and you're actually going to contribute something to this earth, and you're going to actually use the gifts that I gave you.
Right, because I really thought Tears 1 was it. Like, I had no intentions on writing anymore. I thought that would be it, you know. And again, plans change.
All right. Well, first let's talk about Tears. Explain to me what, you know, the plot behind Tears without giving it all away. Explain to me what was your brainchild for that? Tears of a Gangster.
Can I plead the fifth a little bit?
Yes, you may. Well, just tell me the plot line a little bit.
The plot, normally when I write, I don't do a vision board. I don't do any of that. No outlines, no anything. The characters just literally come to me. Like, I'll start writing. It might be a paragraph. I might have seen something, which I did. I saw a lot of things growing up in Oakland. And I decided it started from a paragraph, a statement, and it turned into a full-out book. And the premise behind it was not to glorify their lifestyle, but to show that there are consequences when you live that lifestyle.
What about your characters?
Oh, the characters. The characters pretty much name themselves, just like my books. They named themselves. When I initially started writing, I thought I was going to call the book The Other Side of the Game. And then I said, True to the Game, but then I found out Terry Woods made a True to the Game. And initially it was just 3 best friends. And then I said, well, let me get a main character, a twin brother, because early on in the book, the initial book, I killed off everybody. And I said, no, well, that's not going to be fun. that's not going to be no fun. So, you know, everybody just kind of start developing a name. And then, you know, being from the Midwest, well, mostly here all my life in California, majority of my life, I started naming streets and visioning streets that I had gone down in East Oakland. And it all started coming together. Names, places, events. You know, it just pulled itself together.
Okay. I want to backtrack for a second and let's talk about what you said earlier about, not because you're like a lot of us. A lot of us, when we do fiction, we don't do outlines, we don't do visual, we don't do any of that. But someone like me, I think you're kind of like me, you kind of let the characters drive your story. Kind of like imaginary friends, but not imaginary friends. Is that true?
Right. That's true. That's true. Listen, I'm working on this new project, and one of the books, okay, let me go back. Tears of the Game 1. I thought that was it. I didn't think I was going to write anymore. That was it. And someone called me to do an interview. A book club had contacted me and wanted me to come and speak and do like a book signing. So I went. And before I left, the ladies were like, oh my goodness, I need to hear more about Keisha. I need to hear more about Daisha. Is she going to get revenge? What's going to happen? You know, and I was like, to myself, like, you know, you keep that smile on your face, and I'm like, yeah, this is it. And then I got home, and pulled out my laptop, and the story just, it was like they was just talking to me continuously, like, no, this is what you need to say. You need to finish, explain this, get some women empowerment back. You know, don't make her so weak. Don't, you know. So, and it turned into Tears of the Game Part 2.
Mm.
So each book, I had no intention on writing. It was the readers that kind of contacted me and was like, oh, I'd like to hear a story about, you know, yeah. Because I wasn't going past Tears 1.
Well, here's the other thing too, yeah, because, and here's how I tell people how you know that you're reading a good book, is when your fans start reacting to certain characters and they catch feelings about something.
They do.
And that's
they do.
Yes. How do you feel about that?
I get a kick out of it, really, because you know, it at first it had me kind of like, wow, I wrote that. I mean, they so engaged. You know, I was looking around the room like, that is really into this book, you know. And so it's a good feeling. It's a very good feeling. When I wrote Love No Limit, total different book, total different characters, but I pulled some of the characters from Tears and brought them over to Love No Limit. Actually, all 6 of my books are, 4 of my books are intertwined. They're not sequels, but they carry some of the characters with them.
Okay, awesome. How do you feel about that? Because see, I do a lot of that with my books. Actually, not how do you feel. How do a lot of your fans feel about that?
Oh, they love it. They love it. Like, and so that's what I was saying earlier. So the project I'm working on now is because several fans, like if 1 or 2 fans say it, or readers say it, I like to say fans, readers say it, you know, I'm kind of like, okay, that's good. That means they enjoyed the book. They enjoyed the story. But if I'm getting 10, 12, 15 people in my inbox like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen with, then it starts making my mind click like, okay, let me, start writing some more.
See, that's awesome because see, like you, I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but like you'll actually get, different ranges from people who love the character, all the way to the fact they get mad at certain characters. They love the character, but then you get angry inboxes. What the hell did you do?
Yeah. Yes, they get so mad. The young lady who does my edits, she contacted me on on all of them, but one particular on it might have been He Said, She Said, or Love No Limit, whichever. She was like, in the beginning I got kind of mad. I said, well, why did you get mad? He said, girl, I thought you killed off my boo. I said, what? I said, you do know these are fictional people, right? And she said, girl, look. So, and then in one book signing I did, I had people arguing back and forth like, no, I love him. No, are you going to kill him off? And, they are really invested in these stories. And it's great because it's telling me that, they're engaged. I've pulled them in, which is what a writer wants to do. You want to pull them in like a movie. You want to pull them in the movie, make sure they sit them hour, 2 hours, engaged in your work.
And henceforth, my point earlier, God had a lot more for you, and this is it. Because again, I said, before I started the interview, I told you, I bought a few of your books last week and started reading them. And I'm actually going to do a few reviews here in a few weeks. And I'm loving it. I got the Tears Gangster series. And I want to pick up He Said, She Said, because recently I just did an interview with Levon Barber, who you wrote the book with. And it's just, man, don't play with me.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. I love Levon Barber. That's my girl. You know, initially Ringo I had contacted him to do the book with me. He said, she said. And I think we got the first page only down, and he passed away, unfortunately. And then I contacted Levon. I'm like, Levon, I got this project. I want you to jump on with me. And she was like, you didn't even have to ask, sis. I got you. And so when we did the book, once people read it, we were told if we didn't know that it was two women that wrote this book, we would have swore it was some men who did this. We were like, hey, we did our job.
That's what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So like I said, you guys did a great job. I'm like I said, I'm only into like a quarter of the book, but I'm loving it so far. So
thank you.
No, thank you. And it's not a problem. So please tell me you have a lot more books in you over the next.
I do actually. Actually, I'm working on 3 books right now. And that's a habit, you know, I've come to. Like when I was working on Tears 2, I was also working on Love No Limit. And he said, she said. So it's a habit, you know, and people ask, well, how do you keep the characters separated? Because each character kind of tells me when they want me to stop working on this book and come to this book. So right now, people were asking about Ryan, one of the characters in Love No Limit and Game Changers. And the other day I woke up and he was like talking like, okay, so I need you to explain this, and this is where I came from, and this, and I was like, oh my goodness, I said I was not writing about you. And now I've called my graphics designer and got my cover done, and you know, so yeah, it's a couple more left in me.
Look, public service announcement in between this interview. I'm sorry, I got a break for public service announcement. I told you I was not playing with you guys. These characters are our imaginary friends, and I'm serious. And she's gonna correct me for what I'm about to say if I'm wrong. If you're writing a particular scene in a book, and that character says, "Hell no, you're not gonna write this scene," you're gonna change that entire scene to fit that character, or your book's not gonna do well. Or am I wrong?
Exactly. You're absolutely right. It's that mixed with someone who will give you honest criticism. And regardless to if it hurts your feelings. My daughter is one of those people. So I'll write something and I'll be like, oh, wow, that's good. Oh, they're going to love this. And I'll give it to her and say, hey, read this and tell me what you think. And she's like, what does that mean? It was okay. I said, no, like it was good. She said, Mom, you want the truth or you want to convince me that that's what you want? If you want to write, you the writer, you can leave it there, but it don't sound right.
Right.
Oh, okay. You know, and I'll go and I'll change it. And she would be actually right. That it, you know, you got to look at it from the reader's perspective.
Yeah, because he will have those and see, which is another serious public service number for real, guys. You've got to take your critics seriously. I mean, like you just said, somebody that you know that can be objective, who's going to be honest and say, you may want to do something else. Even if it hurts your feelings, you got to go with it. Especially
right.
The book to say.
Absolutely. I totally agree. You know, and I appreciate it. Like, you know, and to be in this industry, you have to have thick skin. You know, it's just like in the music industry. Everybody is not gonna like that song you sung, you know, and they will critique it down to the last note. You know, like, oh, did you hear that note she hit?
Yes,
well, that didn't sound too good. that didn't sound too good, you know. So same thing with the books, you know. You just have to be mindful.
Awesome. So tell me from So tell me from the first book to last, how many titles do you have out? And what are the titles?
I have 6 titles out. Tears of the Game 1 and 2. And then He Said, She Said. And then there's a prequel to He Said, She Said called Main Attraction. And then there's Love No Limit, the Rich and Mia story. And then Game Changers, which was extended from Love No Limit. It's not the same book, but it has all of the characters from that book in Game Changers. And a few new ones.
And see, that's what I think. I'm trying to wait for the new ones to come out because you actually is one of the new fans. So when you're not writing, what do you like to do?
When I'm not writing, I'm actually the president of a motorcycle club.
Ooh, I love it.
Right. So if I'm not working, I'm with my club. If I'm not writing, I'm a homebody. I really love being at home.
I'm actually more into the motorcycle club. I love it. I love motorcycle clubs, so that's one of my big things. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, I love it too.
So now, not being talking about all this gonna be I'm actually just so excited talking to you. Now you're just interesting all around. That book, that motorcycle, it's just pretty cool. I love this. When LaVon actually suggested you to be, I didn't know I was gonna get more than what I bargained for, which is so freaking awesome. So,
well, thank you.
Oh no, thank you. So, how can people get to know you? Buy your books? Get to see? Well, how can people get to know you?
I'm very approachable on Facebook, Instagram. I interact, with people. You got to weed out the nonsense, but
yes.
They can reach me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. My website is done now at Author Angie Liddell, and so they could purchase my books through my website or Amazon, or they can also email me and get an autographed copy.
Beautiful. Now, more serious question, since I'm glad you brought that up. More serious question. How do you deal with a lot of BS within and not within the industry?
I don't even entertain it. If it has nothing to do with me, it's not my business.
Yeah,
if it one day comes where it has something to do with me, I'm very honest and straightforward. So I'll deal with it, and people need to understand that we are human behind these pens. So you might not want to do that.
And trust me, we also know what 911 is. So
right, right.
So that is like so cool. So you said you have some books in the future. What do you? So are there any other really good titles you can tell us about that's coming up?
What's coming up? Well, I just released Game Changers the 4th of July. So that's the newest book. Okay. I'm working on 3 books right now. A Heart on Trial, that's kind of about my life. That one's taking longer. I was writing that probably back when I started writing Tears 2, but it's so personal, I'm just taking my time with it. Ryan's story, that's what I'm working on now, which is called White Collar Hustle, the Ryan story.
Oh.
And I also have How She Rides, and this geared towards um, the motorcycle world. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So real quick, tell me a little bit about Game Changers.
About who? I'm sorry.
Game Changers.
Game Changers. Game Changers, again, are some of the characters from Love No Limit, the Rich and Mia story. Rich and Mia are assassins. So it carried over into Mia has a sister. Her and her husband are assassins as well. So really, Rich and Mia is about Rich and Mia. Game Changers is more so about her sister and her husband.
Okay. Beautiful.
Advice for any writer, new writers, um, do your research, copyright everything. Um, if you're assigned with someone, make sure you read that contract however many times you need to read it before you sign it. I'm self-published. I like my freedom of it. When I first started, I did sign with someone. I only did peers, and I left. Um, and again, have thick skin. Know that it's not personal. I use them as stepping stones. You know, if it's something that a reader has suggested or critiqued, then that means on this next book, I need to come a little different. You know, so just don't take everything so personal.
It's the Author's Corner's first contest. November 2nd, win copies of Small Town Love and Small Town Faith by author Michelle Lindo Rice on Kindle. The enter is simple. Just inbox me your email address on either Facebook or Twitter and put the words contest right next to it. Deadline is October 30th. And then after Michelle Lindo Rice's interview on November 2nd's Author's Corner, I will announce the winner. Those on my mailing list automatically entered. It's the Small Town Love Contest with Michelle Lindo Rice. Thank you, and as always, let your writing fuel your spirit.
Coming soon, the second printing of the Sergeant Wise Guy Chronicles, reintroducing you to a special agent, Sergeant Wise Guy, the government's top strategics and agent with a very sarcastic tongue. A former ranger, he heads up a team of specialists taking care of missions too big or too messy or other agents don't want to handle. His first mission takes him to Paris, where a stolen Cold War nuclear warhead was discovered. While discovering the warhead's origin, a lost dead love resurfaces. Can Sergeant Wise Guy resolve both before the secret plans for the warhead is complete? Well, check out the second printing of the Sergeant Wise Guy Chronicles, coming soon.
Well, for me, I started out writing really young because I started out reading very young. I was about 3 years old when I started reading, and like I said before, this is probably, one of the reasons why my eyesight is so bad. That I started reading really young, and I enjoyed reading. I started writing, kids' poetry, little stories when I was a kid. But then after that, as you get older, and especially during the time that I was growing up, when you are a smart kid, the expectation is that you go into one of the professions. So, when somebody asks you, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? You don't say, well, I want to be a writer. And they look at you like you're insane. No, you say, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer. And that's the only way that you get to go through life without being harassed to death. But I did actually go down the road first, thinking I wanted to go to medical school, but then thinking I wanted to go to law school. And I did. I went to law school. So I, am an attorney. I'm still an attorney. But I've always wanted to write. I've always had these stories running around in my head. I, always wanted to share what was in my head. I believe that science fiction, fantasy, and horror are great allegories and analogs for things that are going on right now. I think the thing that really got me walking this direction was when someone, I can't remember who it was explaining how Star Trek was actually kind of like so it's one of the stories in particular about kind of like a Cold War, where you have the United States and Soviet Union using all these other little countries to fight their battles for them, even though they would not fight each other directly, how they use other people to fight their battles. And I thought, wow, how interesting it is, because as you watch the show and you pick one side or the other, because it's Federation, because it's the Klingons, you're making judgments about this stuff based on the actual story and plot itself. Now, if they told you it was the Soviet Union and they told you it was the United States, you might say, well, this is my side and I believe them, or I don't believe them. But now they've put it out there in such a way is that they have alienated you from, I guess, your team, alienated you from whoever it is that you believe is your staple that you're grounded in, your country, your town, your race, your sex, that they scrape all that away, put these other people in it, and say, now here is an issue. Then you have to figure out, what do I really believe? And that's why I like sci-fi, fantasy, and horror, because it kind of gets you to the point where you have to think, what do I really believe? And I have so many issues, that I deal with the political, just gender, issues of race or ethnicity, as I like to say, because there's really no such thing as race, but ethnicity. All these things that make up, how it is that we are seen, and then how the filter through which we see life. So that's why I write. That's what made me say, okay, enough is enough. I want to write it. I want to put it out there and let people read it and think, okay, what is it? You don't think, what is it really saying? But you think, boy, I really identify with these people, or I don't identify with these people, but not because they are any particular sex or any particular ethnicity or come from any particular country. It's because this is what I believe. And then you backtrack and think, now, in the grand scheme of things, what do I really believe about what's going on in my world? So that's where I am. That's why I do it.
You're the difference between someone who just writes fantasy, sci-fi, and horror. You're the difference between someone who just writes it and someone who's like immersed in it. You're like immersed in it. You have you. I mean, I'm sorry to say you have some that just write it, but then you have those that you Octavia Butlers, and you're in that category. It's like
Yeah.
where like you said, Star Trek was highly political, and
Yes.
unless you really got into it, like you and I did, you
Yes.
understand the politics of Star Trek. So yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think when we look at most of our uh, stories, and I think a lot of people have problems sometimes being able to divorce certain things. I remember someone talking recently about Dune, the newest, iteration of Dune.
Mhm.
And of course, the concept of, like, you have these people who we look at as quote unquote colonizers, pale skinned individuals, like they're living in this desert, and, but where the brown skinned people who are living in this desert, I mean, almost none as I can see. And they always have just like this one guy or this one woman, like they just grew up out of the sand somewhere. Where's their mom? Where's their dad? Where are their siblings? Where are their aunts and uncles? Where is the family that, kind of surrounds them that says, this is who we are? And, the isolation of people of color, I think, is kind of a problem, which is why I think, Black Panther was such a great film, because everywhere you look, right, left, behind you, in front of you, there are people that look like us. And, nobody's worried about somebody snatching their purse or, chain snatching, jumping over the turnstile, or anything crazy, just how we are for real. And I gotta get right now, just a shout out right quick to Vampires versus the Bronx. What a fantastic little film. And I mean, I thought, I heard, it's great, but I think from people who expected it to be something else. And it got great reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. I think it's wonderful, showing little Black kids, not little Black kids, but little Black and brown kids that are male, okay, that have a friendship at the end that says, I love you, to his friends, because they're his boys. And that's how these kids grow up. Not like every child, and I know a lot of people really like The Wire. I hate that piece of garbage, okay? You have this storyline where they act as if no doubt there are murders, no doubt there's drugs being sold, in places like Baltimore, New York, wherever. But you know what? People are meeting each other. They are falling in love. They're having children. They are thinking about their futures that don't have anything to do with that. They're going to school. They're learning. They're doing well. But that is just a big giant stereotype. And the unfortunate things that we see ourselves so few times on television, that we had so many of us saying, oh yeah, that's keeping it real. And it wasn't. That's just a fantasy. It's the same fantasy they've been, selling us for so long. And now we're going through this renaissance that the internet has provided us the opportunity to tell our stories the way we see the world through our filter, not the way that other people have imposed on us. So this is just, we don't even realize it right now that we are living through the change right now. And I'm so excited to be part of it. I mean, you are excited to be a part of it. I mean, bringing people in, talking to the artists who, from their own points of view, can explain why it is that we're in it, why it's so important to us, and why none of us should really quit, and even if you don't get that huge mass market audience, if you are getting 5 people and it changes the way they think about themselves, you've done your job. So that's how I feel really, really great about it.
And before we get into the book, let's explore that for a second, because like you, I don't write the norm either. I write. Well, I actually have three genres I write: romance, mystery, suspense, and espionage, which are now type of the norm. So I guess my next question is: you and on social media, for example, how do you get along in a world that expects you to write urban fiction, or if you know what I'm talking about?
Exactly.
How do you get along in a market that expects you to push urban fiction, even though you don't put right?
Yeah. And I think that that's a big problem, because you have the powers that be, the gatekeepers have already decided what it is that we like before we ever have an opportunity to like it. They're telling us, well, you like street lit, you like, things that keeping it real, down and dirty, gritty, things like that. But we're never given an opportunity to read anything else. Who got to write the fantasy story about the young Black prince, who goes out, somewhere in the woods in the forest and is confronted by a wizard or a mage and given 3 tasks and then shows how he goes through these things. I mean, I don't know. We don't have that. And I'm going to tell you one thing that really concerned me, and it is a language issue. And that's, I see people who have written things that are supposed to be in the future, right? 3,000 years in the future, 5,000 years in the future. But the Black people are still speaking the same slang, same cadence, same everything, as if they just walked out of the piney woods somewhere, or right out of, New York City, in the middle of the 70s somewhere. And so I ask, if you divorce this language hook that you have in your writing away from your plot, how do we know that we're Black people? And this can't be using hooks like, yeah, man, or, I can dig it, or whatever. What is it about us culturally that is significant? And there is much, and it should be reflected in the writing, instead of making us into stereotypes, consistently, that, that's the only way someone's Black. For instance, think about Transformers. What is his name? The one they use.
Yeah, Jazz.
The one, and then Transformers, the Transformer that they made sure that he spoke, kind of with the cadence in his voice, and as if he is a quote unquote Black person. Now this is a Transformer from some other galaxy somewhere, Somebody tell me why it is he would speak that way. What does that have to do with anything? And the thing is that you didn't have to say, well, because he's black, because they're telling you that this entity is black. We sat down a week or so ago and listened to Cree Summer. They had this video online where this woman was talking about all of Cree Summer's voice acting. And you could always tell when the character that Cree Summer is supposed to be playing or vocalizing is black or not. And she falls right into, her, I don't know what you would call it, ebonics or characterizations, of black people when she's supposed to be black character.
She played black people and white people. She voiced them both.
But the question is this, why has she decided that when she is playing a person that's black, that she's going, oh, I'll go get there and I'll go do that? Why?
Exactly.
Why? It's a stereotype. And we know that that's not the way she speaks. We know that's not the way that she can emote with respect to characters. So why did she do it? And no one ever calls her on it. No one ever calls the production companies on it. She did the voice of Susie Carmichael in Rugrats. I love Susie. And that was perfect. She's just a little black girl. And that was wonderful. But then was the code name Kids Next Door. I was like, what in the world is that?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? And that people got to think about what they put out into the world and what it means, to black children who are watching it. And I can go on and on, about the Pickaninny, the episode in Lovecraft, which I found to be highly offensive. Where you have one little girl and her fear, instead of being this white man that she's looking at after her best friend's been killed by white men, to run to some white man and drag him on his shoulder and say, "Did you see that? Do you see that?" And his two little black girls, granted, you think they may be a little creepy looking, but I'm going to throw my lot in all the time with a black person after the white people have just killed my best friend. So why would you create this story where the bad guys, the embodiment of evil, is two little black girls, as if the black girl brand has not suffered enough? And some people said, oh, it's because it's supposed the last thing she saw was this picture, of Uncle Tom's Cabin with Topsy and Eva on the cover. But Eva is a white girl. So why wasn't one of the creepy little girls a white girl? Why are they both black? So I don't know what they plan to do that I have not seen the next episode yet, the final episode yet. And maybe they explain it then. But, always have to understand when you're making these things, you don't make them in a vacuum. And other people can take that stuff apart and use it for whatever they want to use it for. And you may say, well, I just meant, that this was, supposed to be scary little things. But what's so scary about them? That they have natural hair that's not combed and straightened like little girls, now or even, in the 40s or the 50s or 60s would have their hair, that their mothers weren't given time to sit down and comb their little girls' hair so that they would look good. So that's scary. That's ugly. That's unkempt. We really need to get our acts together and understand what it was that we put on the screen and determined was a negative thing. That. But that's but again, I digress.
You're fine. I was just going to add that one thing that I loved about the last interview was, you saw, I call it Black Girl Magic. So I love the fact that we could actually have African American women represent black, represent genres that are specific, stereotypically are for older white men, young white men, or whatever. Remain strong in them. So trust me, I feel everything that you're saying. So there's nothing you're saying that I don't feel. Especially in a world where young black girls or black women in general need our protection more than anything. As well as a chance to show, hey, we're the strongest race on this planet. Why can't we get any, why can't we get any recognition or anything? We're the mothers. We're the we're the gatekeepers. We're we're the breadwinners. Majority of us are. I'm sorry.
Right.
So
Yeah. But I think, again, people are telling a story, but not thinking what is the result of putting this out in the air. Are you telling how about a black girl who has a facial disfigurement? Are you telling her that she's creepy and ugly and evil and scary? I think they really did not think that through. And that's my concern. That, so let's say you are a little black girl who lives in a country where you're not, able to, take care of yourself the best that you can, and you have a facial deformity, and you see this, and you think what they're saying is that I'm evil, that I'm ugly. So those types of things I worry about, and we have to be very careful about, what it is that other people tell us to do. We're in the process of writing, and I do understand that Lovecraft Country was written by a man who was Anglo, or at least not a black person, and may not have thought about those things. But we have to discuss those things, bring those things to people's attention, so that we don't believe that everybody believes that that was okay.
okay. So my next question is, see, something tells me that this has always been in your head since you first started writing. And I mean, as a little girl.
Yes.
So, how did you get to be so quote unquote, as everyone say it, woke as a young
I think I was growing up, I came up, of course, in the civil rights era. And my parents got, all of the ebony, library, those little encyclopedias that you would get. So we had all of that. We had the magazines that came to our house. My mother was a teacher. So, they were very educated people. Um, my father was not, he didn't, well, I'm not saying that educated. He was an educated person, just didn't finish college, but he was in the military. He came out, worked for the airlines. And so because of that, we traveled a lot when we were children. And so we didn't see things, kind of narrow, like I'm never going anywhere. I never been anywhere. We always had it in our minds that we had the capability to move around and to go places. It was an expectation. I remember being, really young. I can't remember, 4, 5 years old, and having to learn all the states and all the capitals. And that was just something we did, sitting, around at home. When Christmas time came, you were given like the little doctor's kit and things like that to, kind of see. But by the same token, we got the Zoom loom, we got all those little just like craft items, everything, and that you could imagine. I think the things I would have most wanted more when I was a girl was like the erector sets, things like that. I enjoyed those. And now when I had kids, I had sons who were into like the Transformers, the Gundams and stuff. I couldn't wait for Christmas time to sit there and put all that together for them. I loved it. So I was always conscious of that. And I always tell people my story and my husband, I told him, we were, our kids were young. I said, did you ever notice Christmas time when they have all the different toys out, toys and games, they have children playing games, mostly the white kids, black kids, girls, whatever, mostly white boys. But then when there's anyone else other than a white boy in playing the game, at the end of the commercial, it is always the white boy that says, I win. Did you ever notice that?
Yeah, I've never noticed it, but see now you think about it, yes, it was always white people I win.
And then one commercial when our kids were young, and I was explaining this to my husband, and in this particular commercial, it's just a little white girl. She won the game. You know what happened at the end of the game? The little white boy says, you win.
Mm-hmm. He didn't get to pronounce it.
So you don't get to win until they say so.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody's telling them this directly, but even if they weren't telling them, if they were, maybe, but if they weren't telling them directly, it's like subliminal that you are either the winner or you get to determine who the winner is. And so things like that. And my husband's like, wow, what, you are really like deep in conspiracy theory. It's like, but I've been this all my life because I've been a black girl all my life. And I always was very conscious of things that are going on around me. I mean, we were put into integrated schools, early. I mean, we integrated the schools that we went to, my sisters and I, when we first started out. So I was always very circumspect, with regard to interacting with people. I mean, I wasn't like scared or anything like that. I was no different than I am now. I'm very mouthy, very talkative. Um, I've had a big personality ever since I was a kid. So none of that was different, but I always knew to keep my eyes open and watch patterns and things of that ilk. And these things, of course, yeah, from very young, I noticed how certain things work myself, things that happened to my sisters, and all of this kind of rolls into this ball of knowledge, and that you want the best way to transfer this to other people without them immediately saying no, or I don't believe it, or that doesn't make sense. So we spoon feed it, little by little, and bites that people can get and understand, and to hopefully broaden the way that they think about themselves and other people.
One of my biggest in the household is one thing, but in society, one of the biggest things that I don't like, biggest phrase I hate is know your place. Sorry, but we don't have places. So
Exactly.
So
exactly.
Good that you and I don't know our place, or we wouldn't be in the positions that we're in now.
Exactly. And that's a weird thing that my husband and I talk about also. I mean, these are conversations had in our household. Where back when we were growing up, I was growing up more than you, I think I'm a little older than you are, that our parents, our grandparents, you're a smart kid and you're just navigating the world as a little smart kid. And they are terrified for you. They are terrified, not just for you getting the wrong attention, they are terrified of you getting any attention. They're terrified of anybody pointing you out and targeting you. And you're just young and living your life. You want to do what everybody else does. You're smart. You can do all these things. But these people who love us fear for us. And that's the thing that I've learned now more, having my own children, that people get jealous, angry, even our own people look at us and say, oh my gosh, why are you bringing attention? Why are you doing this thing? So yeah, we got a lot of work to do, but we don't get to do the work until we talk about the fact that the issues exist. And maybe in our writings, that's where we get to start the conversation. It is wonderful to talk about using romance. What a great area to write in. It is a wonderful thing to talk about relationships and how they're built and how they grow and the hardships. And you know what? It can even be, for me, flowery and lovely and doesn't teach us a doggone thing, because that's wonderful for us to have that romance. I think is great. And I mean, I applaud you. That's fantastic.
Thank you very much. So coming back in the full circle of writing, with all your values and all you learned, what prompted you to put that into your world of writing?
Well, it's simply, I think, not even simple, it's kind of a complex thing, that one of my favorite films is Deliverance. Now, the reason why I like Deliverance is because it is key to understanding how it is. And I started doing screenwriting before I did the novelizations. In fact, the first Renfield's project is a screenplay. There are 2 screenplays. But then I backed up and then have done them as novelizations. But when you watch Deliverance and you think, okay, this is about this group of friends who goes out into the wilderness in, Georgia, in the hills, where they're, supposed to be, they're these civilized guys going on a little trip. And they get out there in a world that they do not understand. And we think, oh my gosh, these guys, this group, and this is this thing that happens to them. But it's not really about that. It is not about a group of guys. It is about one man. One man, and each part of who it is that he is in society in civil society that makes him a successful individual. So he goes out into this place, and these issues, these country people, these folk, come in and one by one attack each piece of what is he believes he is, his manhood, the Ned Beatty character who is raped, his physical brawn, and I could take care of myself. That part of him is injured, when they go down the river and cuts open his leg, he's no longer in use, that part of him. And then his conscience, the man who says, this is wrong. And that thing is taken out completely. And you don't even take it back with him. They weighed it down with rocks and put that body down under the water, never to be seen again. So what we're left with is the John Boyd character, which is the core of who this man really is. So what does this man do when everything that he's relied on that makes him secure in society, what does he do in order to get out of that position? So that's the way I think of it when I'm creating this world with these characters. It's not actually this giant set of characters. It's actually one character. And we slice them up into many different pieces. And then we see how each piece of that person navigates itself in society. So that's the way I look at it. So I'm, all of us, because we're only one person, right? I'm the only me writing. You write, you are the only you writing. So each character is actually you, but each little part of you as it is able to understand its place in society. And that's why really within the writing I do, there really are no quote unquote bad guys. Now there are people that do bad things, but that's because within ourselves, we can't see ourselves as being a bad guy. People do bad things, they get punished for it or not, but it happens and it does and it goes on. But that's the way that I see it. And that's how it is that I come to it, that I'm telling a story from my point of view, slicing everybody, this person, and, putting them all out there. How do they navigate the world? How this person in these pieces, this part of them, how does each part of them navigate the world? And that's basically what it has been for me.
I personally, I gotta tell you, I've never thought of deliveries like that, but you broke it all the way down. But I gotta tell you this about this morning. Right before the interview, I had one of my readers just accuse me of all my characters being pieces of me. She was right.
Yes.
But wow, that is so, because your characters are, each of your characters are pieces of you.
Yes.
This is you here, this is you there. I see some of you in here.
Yes.
But that is so true.
Yes. Yeah. So this is why it is so much fun for us, because it gives us as writers an opportunity to explore who it is that we are, how it is that we see the world. Even we can see how people on the other side of an argument, how they see the world. And we can tell that story because, we are the gods of our universe. We can do whatever we want.
See, I love that. I love that. So please, with all that, tell me about this project that you started with.
All right. Well, my project, my magnum opus right now, is The Chronicles of Renfields. The first book came out last year, which was regarding Koyescu, and it was November 11th, 2019. That book is a little bit more adult. There is graphic sex, graphic violence regarding Koyescu. But I love it because, of course, one of the things that I do write erotica. And I think one of the issues is that we kind of slink away from issues of our sex and sexuality, especially as Black people, because it has been used against us so often, as being either, we get to be either mammy and unsexed, or we're, Jezebel, Sapphire, and oversexed. We never just get to be ourselves in the middle. And sex is part of who it is that we are. So yeah, I write it and I write about it, and it's in my books. And so regarding Koyescu has significantly more sex. This book, and Koyescu is a revenant. He is a vampire who is very, very old. And finally, he gets an opportunity to have his youth restored to him. But now, he's ancient, and he's got to live his life now in the 1920s during the Jazz Age, finding himself all over again in this world where when he was, coming up, vampires were lords of the night. There was no incandescent lighting. There was people going out at night, walking around in the streets and, having the capability, to defend themselves. That didn't happen. So he is now seeing this new world, and even a world where when he grew up, you have these people over here and then us over here. But now all these new alliances that he never knew existed. Why are we aligning with these guys? Why are we aligning with the, with paradoxes is what they call, human beings? Why we have alliances with them? They're not, they're our subject. We're supposed to be, consuming them. What's going on here? So he's trying to find his way in this new world. He is, in this story, the main character. The character in the book that I'm coming out with at the end of the month, it's got Chronicles of Renfield, the first book of Ramona. Ramona is a minor character in regarding Koyescu, but she's a very important character because she's actually the main character in all of the Renfield novels. Her story is the main story. And she is one of those children that was brought up to be, the head of the organization. But understanding that Renfields are not like other organizations. Now, you may be brought up to do it, but you still got to actually do it in order to gain that role. So she is the head of she's right now the deputy director of the Investigations and Enforcement Division. And as deputy director of Investigations and Enforcement, she is looking for the day when she can ascend to the director generalship. Then after that, pave her way all the way up to CEO of the organization. This is her goal. And then also at the same time, she'll be the first person to be the head of their traditional family wing, the Renfield clan, as well as being head of the corporate entity. So this is the trek that she set for herself, her goal, and this is the story about when it all goes wrong, and then what you do when it all goes wrong. So this is the first book of Ramona, and she is our heroine. She is tough, she is smart, but she's got issues just like everybody else. And she comes up in this story ultimately against a young man who comes from the homeworlds. And our vampires are not from here originally. They're from the place called the Aobenur, which is a separate dimension/universe. So they came over here, found out that this place does not work very well for them because it made them into these bifurcated monsters where they become very civil on one end and then these feral Dracula type things with the fangs and the claws, and they want to suck your blood. So they are living this dual life. Their Renfields, who are my characters, are an actual hybrid of vampires and human beings. And they've been around for millennia. And that is their job to maintain the households, maintain the businesses, all the interests of the Revenants. But the reality is, too, that since they're doing this for them, they're also doing it for themselves. So they are their own empire as well. And so as they become more powerful, the Revenants are kind of a little bit afraid of them because they don't want these people to kind of like back out and not serve them anymore. So they have them under contract. So they're under contract for a certain amount of time. And we're getting, we're right at the beginning of this story. We are at the beginning parts of this contract and how everyone is trying to jockey for position for over the next 100 years when this contract is supposed to be being lived out. And of course, even as the ink is not even dry yet on the contract, Renfields are trying to figure out how to get out of it, and the Revenants are trying to figure out how to extend it. This is, it's all money and politics and power and love and sex and violence and gangs, and all this is the life of Renfields, and which is part of the larger work, which, is myself. I started writing, but I've involved my husband even in it because he can't write, but he can think. And he helped pull this together called Life in the Paradox. And the paradox is this alternate universe that the Renfields live in, where you can see in and out how they have become part of history, one place or another. And all of this, even the concept of doing Renfields came about when a good friend of mine uh, read Gothic novels, Gothic romances, and we're reading this stuff, and it's okay, it's great, but where are the Black people, and why all the Black people have to be servants or slaves or noble savages? So where's our story? And I don't want a story where, okay, historically they say, okay, well, this is what happened to you historically. So, well, I want power, I want money, I want influence during these periods. So I decided, okay, then I'm going to create my society that runs parallel to whatever this history is. So everybody knows who they are, know what it is that they do, and they exist. They have their own rules and their own society, but it exists alongside our current or my
I, I have
universe.
I have a quick question before you continue. So, come from this parallel universe where they're basically aristocracy, but basically, how they come? Isn't it a culture? Isn't it a big culture shock for them to come here to find out that we're dealing with racism? And like you said, the stereotypes of vampires sucking your blood, Dracula. How are they mending in with the culture shock?
Well, this is the thing. When they come here, remember, this is millennia. I mean, like 30, 20 millennia. They have been here all along, which is why every civilization has a vampire story, has a vampire culture. They have been here that long. So they've come here in their society. They were erudite, they're academics, they're explorers. This place, their universe, which is why they're here, say Aubenur, is very I want to say it's not overrun, but the population is dense. They have planets upon planets. They call the places where they come from not the home world, home worlds. There are multiple home worlds that they come from. Abijah is the main one. But that place, the Aobenir, is full of life, teeming with it. It is so packed. It's like if New York City was a universe. So they're looking for more room. And they're trying to find a way into this other universe to expand, to come in. And this place where we are is a desert to them. This is a desert universe. So they find a way to get through to this place, thinking that they're going to come here, they are going to colonize, they're going to bring people over, they're going to go to the other planets, and then they find out this place is toxic for them, that they can't survive here. And they keep trying, and they keep sending over more expeditions and more expeditions till they get to the point they realize this is a lost cause. Those of you who are there now cannot come back, because when you come back as monsters. So you're stuck there. So those who are here are stuck here. Now one of the reasons that the Revenants who are here have issues with the Renfields is that Renfields are able to travel back and forth between the universes. And even though that universe is their home, they can never go back again. And in regarding Koyeski, this was the thing in that first story that they are able to give. They are able to give him from their blood the opportunity for him to be like a Renfield. So when his time is done, he gets to go back home. That is the deal that he got, which all the Revenants want, is the ability to go back home. And they're not able to go back home. So all of this is like I said, there's no bad guys in this. Everybody has got their position. Of course they're angry. They're stuck in this place where they can only live half a life. They want to go home, but home will not take them. But these people who are your quote unquote servants, well, they get to go. They get to go whenever and wherever they want to. And so of course they're angry, they're jealous. And so we have all these relationships that are being made between, so it's a whole universe of all this that's going on. And these things, sometimes of course I think of it like those of us who are African Americans, the concept, our relationship with our African forebears, that it's like you knew where we were, when we got dropped off. Why didn't anyone ever come to get us? So you have all these things I worked through in my writing. Here we are. We're right here. You knew where we were. We're far from home. Untethered. Where's our home? And then basically you have to figure this place where I am now. I have to make this my home. This must become my home.
You created an entire universe based on one simple concept. We were taken from our home, brought here, now we're here, and this is our home. And we really can't go back.
That's right. That's
and
right.
you put an entire universe from that.
Yes.
That is awesome. So, but what I guess what made what don't take this the wrong way. I say this to writers all the time. It's almost like you have to crack your head open to get the idea because the idea is so expansive. How did you come up with that?
Well, I guess it all started from the kernel of who it is that Renfield is in Bram Stoker's Dracula. In Bram Stoker's Dracula, Renfield was an individual who was in an insane asylum. He was an acolyte of Count Dracula. And everyone, with Dr. Stewart who came in contact with him, this guy's got these issues. The first thought I had was like, okay, we have this guy, and he's there, and he's dealing with Count Dracula, and he's crazy. But what if he's just crazy? Yeah. What if he's not the only one, and the rest of them are not crazy? He is supposed to be an attorney, I guess a transactional attorney. What if they're all attorneys handling business for these people, these revenants, these vampires? What if they're not just some Anglo guys stuck here in the insane asylum? They're all over the world, every habitable continent, and looking like, the people who are on that continent. So that's when the concept is, okay, how do they get there? That they come here and they breed between the people who are here and the revenants, who would that way give them the longevity that the revenants needed for servants who just, for them, they die too quick. They want people going to live a long time. So they want to breed, just like certain other people bred with other people, or bred other people for their uses. And then those people started to create their own empires. And then those who started them out want to crush that. They don't want them separate. They don't want them able to be on their own. They want them tied to them forever and ever, because they cannot exist in this universe without them. So, and boy, see, the next 2 books that are coming out, we talk about the issue of adoption. Did you ever get to say, see James Baldwin, I'm Not Your Negro? I don't know if you've got to take a look at it.
No,
but there's a scene where Bobby Kennedy is talking about the fact that, in 50, 40 years, that he could see, a Black person, becoming president of the United States. And James Baldwin, in, a separate little segment, said, well, thank you so much. Your family been here, 40 years? And mine has been here for 400. So thanks so much for jumping the line, grandfathering yourself into the powers that be. And you're going to tell me, who's been here for 400 years, that if I'm good, if I'm very good, I might get an opportunity to be president.
That's what it sounds like too, if I'm very good, yes. Yeah, that's exactly what it sounds like.
Yes. And so that concept, and like I said, 2 books from now, the concept of adoption, where you have Renfields who remain Renfields because we are a clan, and that's how we are, these Renfields. But then the Revenants decide we don't have enough numbers, so we're going to start adopting people, like adopting like a regular human being, and we're going to convert them. But now this guy who 2 weeks ago was sitting out on the side of the street panhandling for nickels, now he's a Revenant now, and now he gets to tell you what to do. I say, excuse me, how did that happen? We have been around for thousands of years, doing business, helping out. Now this guy just comes along, this Johnny come lately, and now he gets to tell me what to do?
Yeah, all of a sudden.
Yeah. Oh yeah, so again, and like I say, we've got these Ellis Islanders Here they are. And they condescend, they step up on our backs and make their businesses and their profits and their houses, and they get to go out into the white-only neighborhoods where they move all the jobs, and then sit there and look at us and say, oh my God, they just certainly can't get their act together. Everything. And all these things are explored in the writing. Like it says, 2 books from now, we deal with the issue of adoption. My concept of, you take it for a while and then you start saying, I'm sorry, and why are we kowtowing to the Ellis Islanders? Why are we acting as if they get to, leapfrog, and now they're part of this power system that did not even acknowledge their existence? And now all of a sudden they're part of that power structure for the purpose of keeping us down, keeping us depressed. Oh no, we need to explore that a lot more, a lot more.
Two things. Because I'm a very pushy person. That's one of my characters. But I'm a very pushy person. And I got to tell you, my daughter and I would love to read the series. Okay, we're going to read the series. Just gonna
Yes.
let you know that. My daughter would definitely love it. But see, that's neither here nor there. We're gonna do that anyway. But when are these next 2 books coming? Because see, the first 2 are gonna get read very quickly.
Yeah.
So I have to know when at least the next one is coming out.
Well, the first one, I have the one that's a little more spicy, a little more salty. That's regarding Koyescu. That one is already out and available. The first book of Ramona is going to be released on October 31st. It is a Halloween release. After that, the second book of Ramona will be released in March. So I'm not going to leave people waiting for very long between the first book of Ramona and the second book of Ramona. After the second book of Ramona is Renfield's The Seven Deadly. So we have that coming out probably again this time next year. So within the next 2 years, 2 books are going to be produced. The first book of Ramona in March and Renfield's The Seven Deadly next Halloween.
So again, explain to me, you have some in your background.
Mhm.
Who are the characters in your background? Are they part of this book?
Well, yeah, some people, like for instance, I have sisters. I have 4 sisters. And then I have my fantastic children, my sons, my daughter. I have 3 sons, 1 daughter. And they are phenomenal. My daughter is a writer. She should be coming out with her books soon. Hers is I'm not, I'm going to mention it yet because it's so good. My husband asked this question. He said, if you had an opportunity to bring someone's work to screen, it can't be your own. So I said, you have an opportunity to bring a work to screen. Whose would it be? I said, it would be hers. She is going to change the world. Stone Mays is her name. She's going to change the world with her writing. But my mom, I have a main character. And if you read Slay, the stories of the Vampire Noir, my story Unfleemed, there is a character. Her name is Yanara, and Yanara is she's becoming the head of Renfield. This is the story where she is getting ready to become the head. That person is part me and definitely part my mother. My mother, my sisters and I discussed the fact that within our childhood, I think we saw my mother cry twice. Okay, twice. Once was when her mother died, and it was when her mother died. It was when my sister and I walked into the funeral parlor, and she and her sister were in the back after the wake with the funeral director. First time in my life, and I was 10 years old, that I'd ever seen my mother cry. And I was pretty sure that the world was going to end that day. She does not cry. She is small, like this character. She is a small woman. And my mother probably weighs 120 pounds, soaking wet in a fur coat, okay? But she is a person who is precise. She never leaves a thing undone. If there's a thing that she cannot do, she will find someone that can do it. She is that way. And so she does inform a lot in that character. I have, characters like I have one character whose name is Graham, and he is, I think my, people talk about issues of gender stuff. This is my character. His mindset is, I am so wonderful, and he's kind of a narcissist. Everybody should want a piece of this. He said, and people say, oh, this and this, the whole, when you're here in the paradox, people say, oh my gosh, he does this and he does that. He said, look, in the home worlds, there are 19 different genders, and I have done all of them but two. So he said, I said, there is nothing, no one that I don't do, because he's such a narcissist. But he is also sweet, kind, spiritual, but he does not have those issues. And also, even though he's got all this stuff, he is in love with the main character, Ramona. And also, they are really good friends and remain really good friends even when that relationship ends and she moves on, to someone else and then to someone else. But they remain friends. So it's about the other characters. One of the characters, her name is Allison. She is based on one of my best friends, physically and in other ways. She's very tall. She is blonde. She is very focused. She's an academic, but she's got all these other parts to her personality as well. She suffers with depression, and trying to deal with that as she deals with the other issues in her life, and there are a lot of them that relate. I have a character who is Rajiv, who is like the ultimate pretty boy, and I didn't realize until very recently that that's my husband. He is beautiful, and this character is, absolutely beautiful, absolutely competent, but certainly also very petulant. Now, parts of his character's personality are not exactly like my husband, but I realize, this competent, gorgeous man that everybody, is like, oh my gosh, this character he is Indian, India. My husband, of course, is an African American, very dark, very gorgeous, man. And I realized, yeah, that personality comes from my husband. This person who is so sure in everything he does. I mean, he may not be right, but he's so sure in everything he does. So it's this, but yeah, a lot of it, and my children, of course. I see my children in several of the characters. I have a set of twins, Mia and Rita, who are Ramona's younger sisters. And they are smart and they are savvy and they're all about fashion and all about money. That's the thing, the difference they have between them. Ramona is ascending to, this position where she can do what's best for the Renfield clan. Her sisters aren't even about that. They're about money. They're about having, things the way that they want them. They're about being in magazines. They're musicians, so they're very powerful, people in the home worlds. They travel to the home worlds where they are stars, and they come back here when they run out of money. So saying, I ran out of money, and they are daddy's girls. Like my daughter is a daddy's girl, so they run back to daddy and say, "Daddy, we need to have some money. You need to buy a new ship." And of course, Ramona is the one who stands and say, "I'm sorry, but didn't Dad just buy you a new ship?" Well, that was last year, and there's new ships out now. And so they're very spoiled, but she's the one that keeps the reign on her younger sisters, as my older sister was the one who kept the reins on us. So all these people, all these relationships, yeah, they are people I know. They are, wonderful, beautiful, flawed, individuals, as we all are, and they make their way, into these stories.
Awesome. So my next question for you is, you have such beautiful characters, beautiful stories. How have fans received the story?
Excuse me, sorry, I missed you right there. I think I glitched.
How have your readers how have your readers warmed up to your characters in your story?
I don't know. I mean, I know it's like I would hope that the readers, see themselves as whoever it is they identify with. And like I said, everybody is flawed. Everybody is wonderful. And I think it's an important thing when you're writing and you have people who are enemies and people who are friends, people are the bad guys and the good guys, that I don't ever want anyone who reads the book to see themselves, even if they see themselves as a negative character, to see themselves as irredeemable. No one is irredeemable. Everyone has the opportunity to make it right. You may not make it all right, but you have the ability to change. Everyone has that ability. So that's the thing I guess I want to always keep out there for my readers, and they're reading these stories and they're seeing themselves and this guy, that guy, the other guy, they think the person maybe, didn't do things quite right. So you know what? But just like this character, everyone has the opportunity to make a change, to do something that, is beneficial. Even if it's just one thing in their entire life, see yourself that way, that you have that opportunity to change, to make a difference. Nothing is ever written in stone. That you have a plan, the plan fails, make a new plan.
Yeah, I love the fact that, I don't know, I just love your writing, I love your positivity, I love your history. Everything just culminates in you. So, the next question is, how can we get to know you? How can we buy your book? How can we know more about you?
Well, you can find me on Facebook, of course, but it's Penelope Flynn Media is where you can find me on Facebook if you want to know what's going on with the books, know what's going on with what's going on in my head. You can get me at Other Sci-Fi, the Other Sci-Fi group on Facebook. Saturday nights, every Saturday night at 8 o'clock Central Time until we get finished. We are on Discussions from the Otherhood, which is the Other Sci-Fi podcast. So if you're on TalkShoe, find us, Other Sci-Fi's. In TalkShoe, we're Discussions from the Otherhood. So find us Saturday nights. Get in there. We talk about any and everything that relates to our people and media and writing and epic fantasy, horror, film, books, whatever. It gets into politics. It gets into society and culture. Join us. It is so much fun. The last week we had Cherie Renee Thomas, and we talked about all of the blaxploitation horror films and what our favorites were, and just discussed that issue. I mean, we were on for like 2.5 hours. So it's, meet us on Discussions from the Otherhood. We love to have people come in and talk. Twitter, I'm at Penelope J. Flynn. Instagram, also Penelope J. Flynn. My website is penelopeflynn.com. If you want to get into Renfields in particular, then that is renfields.net or renfields.us. I focus right now on Renfields because I do have the Renfields book coming out, but soon I also have a book coming out in the Dark Universe, and that's a Dark Universe novel. The Dark Universe anthologies by Milton Davis and Balagun Ojitade. I have stories in those, and I have a novel coming out based on one of the characters that I have introduced in the short stories, who is Empress Claudia. And there's an entire novel, a set of novels regarding Empress Claudia that are going to be released over the next 2 years. And then we have one of my other projects, which is kind of still on the drawing board because I haven't decided how I'm going to do it yet. And that is White Rabbit. And White Rabbit is a kind of interesting retelling of the story of Alice in Wonderland. And in this story, our main character, Alice, is a young Black woman who finds out that she lives a double life between here in this world and in Wonderland, where she is cadet in their royal forces, where she's got to learn how to navigate her way. And in White Rabbit is her superior officer who kind of is her mentor and teaches her everything until she finds out midway the first book that she and White Rabbit are actually the same age. It's just his hair is white, and she thinks he's a grown man, but he's actually a child, like her. And so because he has his own home, he has his own things, He has, cross shoots coming in and out of his place all the time. So she's figuring he's an adult, but he's not. He is her same age. And so how she has to get through the fact that his competency is so much higher than hers. And she's not a dumb girl. She's smart. But how she's got to up her game to get to be as good as this guy. And then all the stuff that goes on with the Red Queen, with what's going on even within her own life that relates to what's going on in Wonderland, things that she never understood were going on all around her. So the reason that this is a big deal is because I'm trying to decide whether White Rabbit is a television show or whether or not it's a graphic novel. So I'm still working with that. And also, even now, the books that are from Renfield's are probably going to be converted to graphic novels as well. Because this, like behind me, as you see the picture, that is the artwork, the concept art that I use going through when I'm doing a scene within the story, and I can't get a good, picture of it. I do the artwork, and then I describe it after I've done the artwork. So, sometimes something doesn't come to you exactly. So it's okay. Well, what's going on in this story? I put it together, and then I can describe where she's sitting to the left. He's sitting to the right. The dishes are in front of them. The dancer's on stage. Therese is sitting behind Ramona. Whatever it is, that I put it together, the visual, and then I make sure that it makes sense to the reader, because you can see that this is what it actually looks like.
Well, your head hurt a lot because my thing is, like, if you're like me, which I know you're way beyond me, you have all these, with everything you just said, you have all these characters and books and stuff coming out, even though if one of them come out, I'm sure your head must hurt a lot, like Brian did.
Yeah, you got to think too that clients and stuff that I got to handle because I'm still practicing law. So, all this stuff, it's like trying to get it out and get it finished actually in your head so that whenever you get to sit down in front of the computer, you just got to let it, get it pushed out there. Otherwise, you never might. I don't think the luxury of not having it finished in my head before I hit, the computer. Some of the things I start writing it and then you look at yourself and say, does that make any sense at all? No, it doesn't. Okay, rethink it. You got to step away from it for a while, then come back to it because, I said this about this person earlier. Now, do I change that or do I change this that I'm writing now? And you know how that is. Sometimes your characters, you try to write them and they tell you, oh no, I'm not doing that.
You know what? You know why I don't want to hear this right now, because you are so right. In fact, I have this conversation all the time. If you're writing a scene and your character's not feeling that scene, you better change that scene, or your book's not gonna, or you're not gonna feel better. You're not gonna feel good going forward with the story.
Yes. Yeah. And sometimes your characters just say, I'm not doing that. It's like, nope, I will not do that. You want me to do X, Y, Z, but that's not in my makeup. I'm not doing that. And you check it, but you have to do that because if you don't do that, then I can't finish my story. So I'm sorry, your story just doesn't get finished. Because I am not doing that. Have you ever? You just get. That's where I think most of my when I have that writer's block, is because I'm trying to make a character do something that I have not written them to be able to do, and they just will not do it. And then you have to start backing up. So where did I put that thing, write that thing, establish that my character is incapable of doing that because they are not helping me out at all here.
We're actually at the part of the show where I actually give our authors the final word. You can give shout outs, you can give advice, whatever you want to say before it's yours.
Okay, well, I guess the shout out that I want to give right now is that right now, this moment, Slay, Stories of the Vampire Noir is on sale. And I would have to tell you that, I got involved with it at the very end, I guess, of the period for being able to get my story in. But if you see this anthology, it is like 28 different stories of the vampire noir, related to Black vampires. The stories are so wonderful. They are so imaginative, and everyone's story is different. You can imagine someone saying, hey, write a story about vampires, and you'd expect to have at least, a few of them the same type of story, the same type of plot. No. No one's story is the same as anyone else's story. All about black vampires, and it's really kind of cool, or vampire hunters. So I would say my shout out to you all. Get a copy of Slay Stories, The Vampire Noir. I do have a story in it. My story is called Unfleemed. That story is a Renfield's story. So if you want to figure out whether you want to make a commitment into diving headfirst into the world of Renfields, get a copy of Slay, Stories of the Vampire Noir. You can find it on Amazon and it's every place where you can, find books. But it will introduce you not just to me, but to several other writers who some write in this subgenre, and others who this is their first outing into this subgenre. So I would say get a copy. Be introduced to more writers. Every writer is not an African American writer, but everyone has written about an African based or a person from the diaspora as their vampire or vampire hunter. So get it. I would say enjoy it. Read Unfleemed. If you like it, come join me in the road to perdition with my Renfield's revenants in this world of shifters and paradoxons, and it's going to be a ride. It's a heck of a ride. So thank you so much for this opportunity to talk to you all, to let you know a little bit more about why it is that I do, what it is that I do, and hopefully you, again, will join me either with Renfields or some of my other works, and you'll find them at penelopeflynn.com. There's a whole page called Books and Media where you can click on it, and there's several books that have short stories in, and the novels the novel I've written, in my novels, I guess, that I have available. And just jump on in there if you want to talk to me, ask me questions. Penelope at penelopeflynn.com. That's my email address. I'll answer you. Oh, by the way, Patreon. Don't forget my Patreon. It's patreon.com, Penelope_Flynn. And this is a place where you get to see what I'm doing before everybody else gets to see what it is that I'm doing. And we have, very low level, like our Red Rose, which is our $5 level. 2 levels at $25 a month. That's black and purple. Black, of course, you get everything. Purple, everything plus the sex. So if you do not want to see the erotica of what I write, and I do write erotica, have the black Renfield Black Rose. If you are not opposed to seeing, the more salty, writing, Purple Rose, you'll get your money's worth.
By Late Murder at 10 by H.D. Campbell. Former investigative reporter Mark Alexander thought his life hit a slump when a mass shooting results in the murder of a controversial news anchor. Can Mark get out of his head long enough to crack this case? Well, I'm not going to tell you. You'll have to get your own copy of Late Murder at 10 on Amazon.com and coming soon to your favorite bookstore.